after doing more work on relationships and looking at what are my patterns here? How do I keep ending up in the same relationship? I did some work around that and ended up meeting a man and going, gosh, he's so lovely. And we have this great conversation and I feel at ease, and he's funny and he's smart and he's all these things. But I didn't have what I thought was chemistry, just general chemistry. So I thought, oh, maybe we're just meant to be friends, right? I did not understand that chemistry, from a perspective of trauma and through the lens of childhood trauma, was what was familiar. The chaos in my childhood informed my chemistry, right? So here's where I start to get some answers and kind of go outside of what I'd always known in terms of recovery and health and healing, is that I really thought that if I did all the right things, and acted as if, and read all the books, and like I said, showed up in this very conscious, what I now know, prefrontal cortex, rational mind kind of a way, that it would fix all of the things that I was feeling and experiencing from a body-based nervous system perspective. And it didn't work. It didn't work, I now know, because trauma is stored in this subconscious nervous system, body-based way that my conscious mind, it's like the two almost don't, the body's not interested in my opinions. The body's not interested in what I think I know about a thing. The body is interested in survival. We're very primitive in that way. We will always privilege safety and survival over everything else. And my body was wired in this chaotic, alcoholic, dysfunctional, neglectful family system where I had to learn how to survive in that environment. And that wiring then became my imprinting, became my coping skills. It was all that I knew. I wanted something different. I knew that other people had something different, but my desire for it and thinking my way through never changed the only thing that I knew in my body. And so I'm sitting across from this man that I have met, and I'm like, wow, he's like so lovely. And I'm not understanding the difference between that crazy, familiar chemistry and compatibility. We couldn't have been any more compatible. And my body was like, we could be friends. And thank goodness I kind of hung in there long enough, and I saw him again, and I wanted to see him again. And it felt so different. And I had mentors and, even a sponsor that said to me, Ingrid, you always were trying to make the wrong person right, and now you're trying to make the right person wrong. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I believed him. And now, fast forward, we've been together almost 10 years. It's the healthiest, most loving relationship of my life. Different from just about every relationship that came before. I have never felt manipulated, discarded, disrespected. He's never lied to me. And these were things that growing up in that environment, I kind of thought that these were things you had to compromise on. It was like people say, no relationship is perfect and you got to meet someone halfway and all of these things. And I took those sayings and applied them to what I had to compromise on and cope with in my childhood. And suddenly, what am I doing? I'm dating all of these actively addicted, lying, manipulative, dysfunctional people. And I lost my train of thought there. But anyway, I am now in this relationship that has given me this new relationship to safety that I've never really had before, quite frankly. I feel like he really sees me. He really knows me. He's not judging me. He's, like I said, he's not manipulating me, not trying to use me to fix something in him. And so we were together about 5 years when my stepfather passed away. And when my stepdad died, when I got the news, I literally laid down on the floor. I was alone in my house. I'm just feeling the impact of it even now. I felt safer in the world than I had ever felt before. And I just put my hand on my heart. It was like this sort of grace was washing over me, and it was a visceral experience. And my conscious thought is like, this isn't what you're supposed to feel when someone dies. Like, geez, how selfish. Like, I was grateful that he was gone. Even though we didn't have that much contact over the years, he was still married to my mother until the day he died. So he was always in my orbit. And therefore, he was always influencing me in this way that was really brutal. Because what I came to understand is that my stepdad is a classic narcissist, someone who has narcissistic personality disorder. And so all of that, what I just had previously kind of related to active alcoholism, I've come to understand that, yes, it was that. And it was a host of other things that we see with narcissism, including gaslighting. So gaslighting is intentionally manipulating someone so that they literally question not only what happened, but their entire reality, their relationship to themselves. He isolated us, moved us out into the middle of nowhere in the mountains and kept us all really kind of separate. He pitted up siblings against one another. And there was a real grooming of me as a young girl, where I now know he had a pattern of grooming young girls to be their girlfriend or wife. And, my mom was his third marriage at this point. And he was doing it with me, what he had done with women before my mom. And I kind of knew it, but it wasn't so overt that I didn't ever really know. And so part of what I'm learning from feedback related to my story as it relates to childhood trauma in general is that there is this like, did it really happen? Was it that bad? And in part that happens because when you're a child, and again, we go back to this lens and language of trauma and the nervous system and safety, we are developmentally hardwired for relationship, right? We're not someone who comes into the world when we're born and we can function on our own. We literally need our caregivers to feed us and bathe us and clothe us. And so we are wired for relationship. So we come into the world with this, like, I need you because my survival depends on you. So what often happens with childhood trauma is when we are not taken care of or seen or attended to, in all the ways that that can happen, the child has to privilege the relationship above all else because they don't exist if the relationship doesn't exist. So they internalize it must be me. I can't make my caregiver bad because I need them to survive. Right. So I had part of that going on just developmentally, like I have to solve this problem in me. It must be me. It can't really be them. And then I had all of this gaslighting that wasn't only being directed at me, but in the case of my stepdad with my mom, he convinced my mom that I was the liar. I was the manipulator. Often what narcissists do is they take all of these things that they're doing and they project it onto the victim. And they're the ones that are all bad, right? And so he convinced partially me of those things, and he 100% convinced my mom of those things, so that when I did finally have a voice and say, there is stuff going on here that is really bad, and school counselors were saying it's really bad, and social services was brought in, my mom said, "Ooh, I believe that you believe that that's happening, Ingrid, but I don't believe that it is." And there's a lot more there that I obviously go into in the book, but I kind of want to fast forward to like, what does all of this have to do with this marriage of trauma, childhood trauma, complex trauma? Complex trauma is relational trauma, and what that has to do with recovery, generally speaking. Because my stepdad died, and I was struck with all these stories that I had to write. It was to this day, I kind of can't believe what happened and how it happened. But I'd be woken up in the middle of the night, night after night, with these like scenes and stories, not just from my childhood, but all of those dysfunctional relationships and all of the ways that I had tried to cope that didn't quite get me there. It was like these individual essays, and I didn't know how they related or hung together or why they were coming. I thought, am I like meant to be sharing about what it means to be a flawed therapist? In other words, like a human being therapist. And it wasn't until several years later that I saw what I was writing, because I could finally see my own story from a trauma therapist's eyes. And I went, oh my word, I have complex PTSD. That's what this thing is.